I keep saying this, what goes around comes around. What we're seeing now is evidence of that. The failure of this peace treaty that's generating so much alienation and war and extremism in the region is going to spread all over. And, governments have to realize that. And
Mr. Minister, how do you see again that the parliamentarians could contribute to the cultural interaction? Should it be on the individual level or in a structured manner, institutional manner, or what other ways do you suggest?
Well, this is a very important and dear topic to my heart. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the worst and most ruthless enemies to humanity is ignorance. And the education sector can play a pivotal role in ensuring that, students, when they graduate, they are well balanced. They can, for example, as was just mentioned now, they can, distinguish between facts and opinion. I can tell you, just to elaborate on what my colleague here just mentioned, that when I was minister for 3 years, I'm talking about what was mentioned in the media about me and about my ministry. I can safely tell you that 90% of what was mentioned was either incorrect or deformed truth. So students, our curricula should include elements that allow students to accept other opinions, but also to critique these opinions rather than just, take them as is. And during my term as minister, we had several attempts at modifying the curricula, of course, with the help of the civil society and the NGOs. And I mentioned that in my keynote speech. There were several charters signed to that effect in order to modify one of the courses we offer is civic education to most of the levels in the K-12 system. And the idea is to allow these students to be more accepting of different opinions, of different cultures, promote peace, culture of peace, and to a large extent, this is working in the schools where this was implemented. But I think there's also a responsibility on the institutions. There is a strategic role for institutions to ensure that there's a diversity in terms of the pool of students, not just at the K-12 level, but also at the university level. I'll give you an example of what I mean. After leaving, thankfully, the ministry, I went back to my position as vice president of the American University of Beirut, which is one of the top universities across the globe. And one of the main pillars of the institutional strategic plan is the diversity of the student body. We have over 80 nationalities. Why is this important? Because students mingle with not just other nationalities, other ethnicities, other religions, other backgrounds. So this diverse portfolio of students generate a lot of discussions, and believe it or not, students at the end turn out to be much more accepting. They understand that there are other points of view, that the world does not, circle around them, that there are different perspectives to every single issue that are raised. So this issue is extremely important, and had we been cognizant of this as far as the ministries of higher education 20 years ago in the Arab world, maybe we wouldn't have seen the huge number, well, they're not huge, but the number of extremist thoughts that ended up with the problems that we are facing in the region, and that are obviously being exploited by other movements. So this topic, although is the subject of a panel, I think should be the subject of a whole conference, because it's so extremely important, not just for Lebanon, but for the Middle Eastern region, and in my opinion, for the whole world, because I believe what goes around comes around. I mean, these people are from all over the world, and it's extremely important to promote the culture of peace, and it starts from school, and it continues until you pass away.
Thank you very much. Mr. Diab approached the question from the educational standpoint, but do you think that it is only educational level, or parliamentarians, after having finished all schools that they had gone through and complete their education, parliamentarians could also do still something?
Yes, parliamentarians plus every single person in any nation is the product of our school and university system. Had these parliamentarians been, educated the right way with the right perspective, maybe we would have seen a different parliament, at least in Lebanon, where, I think Lebanon now has broken the record in the world for a country without a president for over 2 years. I don't think it happens anywhere. We have a parliament that is renewing for itself now for the 3rd year. We have a cabinet that is in a deadlock, political deadlock, that, so everybody's waiting what happens in Syria. It is such a shame that, people are not open to soft diplomacy and peaceful solutions rather than wait for someone else to clean up and solve your problems. So yes, parliamentarians are the product of our educational systems, and they're obviously going to be affected in a negative way, plus the game of politics, of course.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's an important topic, and as far as Lebanon is concerned, I remember during my term we had many cooperations between public schools in Lebanon and schools in many countries in the Arab region, but more so also in the US, London, some places in Europe. I don't remember all the places, but you're talking about joint projects, you're talking about groups that are mixed from different countries.
Student exchange.
Students, yeah. No, I'm talking about virtual projects. I think that's what was meant from the question, where from the schools using the internet to connect with other schools and do joint projects as well as student exchange. Yeah. So there were quite a few agreements to allow this to happen, but these are fragmented efforts that do not touch on all of the public schools. I know the private schools do this very frequently. And fortunately in Lebanon, unlike the rest of the world, 70% of the student body are in private rather than in public schools. We have 1 million students, and there are only 300,000 in public schools, as opposed to 700,000 in the private schools, although they're the same number. We have 1,500 public and 1,500 private schools. So yes, the ministry played a role, but again, this goes back to finances, goes back to proper internet connections, and I keep saying this, there has to be the political will at the cabinet level, at the government level, to support education, because education, good education, quality education costs money. For example, there should be a law to force all schools to have institutional accreditation from respectable accrediting bodies. This is happening again in a fragmented manner in the public sector, only because I forced it to happen. And in the private sector, there are quite a few schools doing it because they want to do it, not because they have to. That's why I suggested a draft law when I was minister that passed through the cabinet and went to the parliament. Of course, it's sleeping in one of the drawers in the parliament now. But the idea was to establish a quality assurance council for higher education, to allow to basically ask all the higher education institutions to facilitate and to secure institutional accreditation. You're given 5 or 10 years. Otherwise, you should close, because it's not a matter of just providing higher education. If it's not quality, you're doing more worse than good for graduates. They graduate, they don't find a job. The same thing applies to schools. So if we had these institutional accreditations, the accreditation process would require, activities like you mentioned for schools to implement, among many other things as well. So yes, it's happening, but in a fragmented way.
Thank you very much.
I think this young gentleman is very correct. It's one thing to integrate into our educational systems to promote, a piece of culture, and you will see fruition of this 1 or 2 generations down the line.
Is it audible from, do you hear?
Yeah. However, I think with regards to the Palestinian issue, there's a definite failure of politicians. I don't know if you all remember the King Abdullah Accord of Beirut in the year 2000, was it? When 2002, when the 22 Arab nations were willing to sign a peace treaty and Israel refused. And as such, I think what's happening now in the Middle East is really a failure of the world, of the United Nations, not just of what the Middle Eastern regimes and political systems there. And I keep saying this: what goes around comes around. What we're seeing now is evidence of that. The failure of this peace treaty that's generating so much alienation and war and extremism in the region is going to spread all over. And, governments have to realize that. And I think you're right. Several people said that the people that can do, the nations or the governments that can do something about that are not doing enough about it. And I think they should.
How can we, of course, this gentleman from Croatia was referring to he was saying that it is up to the politicians. But if democracy does not function properly, especially when we are talking of certain Arab countries, at least, there the politicians are, they are powerless. So how this mechanism could be?
I will tell you a small story that happened with me to perhaps answer your question with a story. I was at the United Nations in 1992, and I went through there was a tour in the Security Council, and, the tour finished, and the lady said, "Do you have any questions, anybody?" And I raised my hand and said, "Yes, I'm Lebanese, I have a question. I can understand the veto power being initiated after World War II for political reasons then. But what's the justification of the veto power now, these days?" Needless to say how many times the US, used this veto power. And the answer was very satisfying to me, because that's the truth. And she said, "I don't feel that, the nations with the veto power need to justify themselves." In higher education, any degree, the validity of any degree you take could be anything between 2 to 5 years. If you're not, if you don't keep up with research, you lose it. More so in the academic field, but I think in every field. So the issue of critical thinking and analysis, synthesis, communication skills, how to do research, IT skills, management skills, all of these are part of the 21st century skills that provide the breadth in any higher education degree. And these are the skills that are more essential and more important than the depth in the subject matter, the specialization area. Because these are the elements that will make you successful. If you're an engineer, needless to say, you need to know civil engineering or mechanical, but these other elements are extremely important as evident by the surveys that have been carried out over the past years, are important for the success in your future job. Now, if you look at Lebanon, a lot of the universities provide this, what's referred to as the GE component, general education component in a degree. But if you look at the larger picture of the Arab world, 22 countries with around 1,000 universities, you will find that only 5% or so of the universities actually integrate into their curricula the 21st century skills that are needed to equip the graduates to face the needs of the marketplace, communication skills, languages, IT, critical thinking, analysis, synthesis. And it's really unfortunate that, I don't know if it's done by design or not, but it's certainly causing huge problems across the Arab region in terms of millions of graduates that are, that do not meet the job requirements in the international market.